Welcome, welcome. This is Greg Lewis. Hope you're all having a happy holiday season. We have a special show today because we have done a joint show, and it's really Lebanon and Keene in depth, and that's because the city manager of Keene is with us today, John McLean, and he has been kind enough to join me today, and I'm going to go down to Keene and join him. And what we're doing is we're trying to have a learning experience where we have all these wonderful people that work for us in our respective jurisdictions. And so we spent the day here engaging in conversation about common ground, common things we're experiencing, but where there's differences in what we do, and we can learn by our differences. And I guess this is an example of jurisdictions pulling together. And each of us accommodating one another and pulling together and having a conversation. So we wanted to ask you and the members of the community to join us today in this conversation. It becomes a little more theoretical in one sense of two jurisdictions talking, but it also becomes kind of point specific to Lebanon as well as to Keene, because this is tough times, uncertain times, unpredictable times. And I guess the formula we're working under is that we all should pull together, work together, find common ground, find the common shared values we have, and in our communities here in New Hampshire, the wonderful communities we have, and work with our residents and work with our stakeholders, and we'll find a way through all this. I think we're a lot closer to that kind of approach to doing things right than other levels of government. Our local cities and the residents and the stakeholders here are helping us. And so with that, John, would you introduce yourself? I always put the people on the spot, and this time we'll put each other on the spot, about trying to say, how did you get to be where you're at today as the city manager of Keene?
Wow. Well, first off, thank you very much, Craig, for allowing me to be on your show with you here today. As you know, up until a couple of days ago, I wasn't quite sure what we were doing, and then I received this schedule of events, and it seemed like the television show snuck onto that schedule. I am pleased to be here, and it's been great to get to know you. We've talked on the phone over time since you've been here, and I've been in Keene for 18 years, so I guess I have a little time on you in terms of
Absolutely.
New Hampshire.
I'm a rookie, and you're a veteran.
Well, we're both veterans. Yeah, we're both veterans in all the senses. Both of us are Vietnam era veterans. You more specifically in Vietnam, and me in the service during Vietnam. And we both came out of the service. I think I went in the service right out of high school. So at 18, I went in, and I got out at 22. And when I got out at 22, a friend of mine said to me, as I had just gotten married, and said to me, "Oh, I can get you a job." And I had just happened to be relocating in Michigan, even though I grew up in Massachusetts, not far from here. And so he got me a job working in a small city. And my first job was as a water meter reader and heavy equipment operator. So I had an opportunity to work my way through the utility department, and then public works, highway, and then eventually into City Hall, and ultimately into the city manager's office, going to school on the GI Bill. Finally got my master's in public administration, and have been working as a manager ever since. So it's been a good road for me. I started in Michigan, went to Vermont, and was the city manager in Montpelier, and went down to Florida, became a city manager in Florida, and also a county administrator. And then my father was still alive at the time. My mother had passed. My dad was in central Massachusetts. I wanted to be closer. The job in Keene, New Hampshire opened up. It seemed like a wonderful place, and absolutely has been. So I was very fortunate. I got the job in Keene, and I've been there for the last 18 years. So you might say I've been working in local government for 43 years.
And that's just tremendous. That's quite a career record, everyone. For those of us in the business, that's a long and really that's been a well thought out and a great career path that John's been on. I guess today we were talking about what to talk about. Well, I think that what to talk about is, we all of us are trying to plan, find better ways to do what we do to serve people. We're all talking about, how can we keep ourselves economically vital in times like this? Everybody gets hit. I know that Keene's got hit by the weather and the floods and things. We got hit by microbursts this last summer. In previous summer, we got hit by the tropical storm that the hurricane turned into, and which hit our friends in Vermont the hardest, but hit here and took us aback. Trying to have sufficiency in our community, so we meet the needs of our stakeholders and our residents, and be resilient. So we take the punch and we bounce back. And I know we all want to be good stewards. It's a tough deal in terms of how we try to bear the burden of trying to achieve public outcomes that the public would like. And then we really want to be safe and secure in our communities. We want communities where everyone feels good about it, their lives, and they don't have to look over their shoulder, that they feel that their families can go about and they can go about their personal lives, and our businesses are safe and protected from any event, whether it's an emergency management affair or environmental exposure or it's a fire, or it's police protection. So that and we've had some series of issues where somebody comes off the interstate and takes a shot at robbing one of our places, and that we will not stand for that sort of thing. So this is kind of what our world is about. We deal with people, and we deal with the technology of the new age of the 21st century. And we deal with the places we're working and the places we're serving, and then the infrastructure. We both have infrastructure demands upon us, and we're both trying to reach them in the way within our communities and what our communities want. So, John, I don't know where to even begin on that. I'll give you a shot at it.
All right.
See what you think.
Well, I think that you've said a lot, in that statement. Clearly, the purpose of local government was embedded in all of what you had to say. And then there's this whole concept of sustainability, which I think I heard also around the edges of what you're saying. So not only is it service delivery today, it's also about what future will we have. And you don't wait for the future to occur before you begin thinking about it. You have to plan now for that future. It's the money that we invest today, it's the things that we do today that create the better tomorrow. Absent that, and there's always a lot of pressure as to where valuable resources go, absent that investment, that reinvestment in a strategy to balance all the needs of today as well as sustain the future, you could find yourself in a community that has basically not maintained itself very well and has missed an opportunity. Even in these times that we're in right now, opportunity abounds. And that kind of thinking is often very difficult, particularly if, in a state like New Hampshire, where the reliance on property tax is so dramatic. So how do you and I and our communities that we work with, and our councils and our mayors and our citizens, how do we find a balance relative to sustaining that community for now and into the future? And that's, I think, what people like you and I do, trying to help achieve that through a variety of different techniques.
Yeah, it strikes home when we see our people that live in our communities and what they're going through in their lives. And the other day, my wife and I took a trip on the Polar Express, which was a Rotary-run charitable event where we didn't have, our children were empty nesters.
Was Tom Hanks on the
There was a gentleman that looked just like Tom Hanks, and I love Tom Hanks. I love Private Ryan. I love Tom Hanks. I love him, everything he's done. He's one of my favorite actors, and so I couldn't resist going on the Polar Express.
And you probably had to talk to the guy that looked like Tom Hanks.
I did. He gave me a cookie. And so when we were down there, and my wife said, "Well, we don't have any children anymore." I mean, well, we still have children. They're over there. They just happen to be living in California, New York City, and Minnesota. He said, "Well," I said, we'll adopt a child. We'll get on the train. I hope we don't look like child molesters. We'll sit.
I was going to say that could be a little tricky, adopting someone else's child. We're not stalking people's children, but we are a empty nester couple looking for children. Right.
And so we sat down, and a really nice couple came in and sat down across from us. And a little boy named Josh was with them, their child. And they were wonderful parents, and they had a wonderful child. It just turned 2 years old.
So they took a little pity on you and let you adopt him?
They did. They let me take their pictures, and I became the family photographer.
Nice.
And I was thinking about us living for today, and we want to make sure that if you're in our areas, and whether you're a young couple or whether you're a senior citizen or whether you're someone with special needs or whether you're a business person on the main street or some of our great workers we have in our area, whoever you are, we wanted them to all be able to handle, the present needs, their physical needs that they have for being able to maintain their life, and then, and then other needs, and the needs that they have for learning and continuously developing. And I watched this little Josh, and he was the most beautiful child, and angelic, and he was dancing to the music. He was pure. He's like all of us. We all start out like the little Josh. Little Josh is where we all start out, and then as we get older and we go through some of these life experiences where our systems don't get together and provide the needs that we meet. And so on our era that we're going through here, we're trying to figure these systems out so that little Josh can go through his generation, his children can also. We will add back more than we take. So, my family is a World War II family, and they talk about sacrifice. I go to a household that's full of people who sacrifice. And now what we've got to do is we got to invest for Josh. So Josh and his children after him and his grandchildren are going to have a great place to live like we'd have a great place to live. At the same time, we can't neglect where we're at right now. I can't find myself that we neglect Josh's parents, because we're trying to help Josh.
Well, here's an interesting thing. I mean, all of those observations are, from my point of view, are very accurate. I was raised also by people parents who had gone through the Great Depression and lived through World War II, and they knew scarcity. They knew the concept of scarcity, and they lived in a more frugal manner. They saved things, they reused things, and what have you. So those of us baby boomers who came through with our parents who had that in mind, obviously were brought up a different way. And even our children who are now Xers and the Y generation probably have a little bit more of that in them, instilled in them, because of what we experienced. Although there are some differences, obviously. But this newest crop of children coming up, I think because of technology and its rapid assimilation into our culture and the pace that it's created and the demand for information that's created, are probably going to see something and feel something and experience something totally different than even we can, even observing it, really understand. And that too, then, I think, has caused some real significant issues relative to how we socialize and how we provide and how we do business and how government operates. And those are some of the things that you and I and the people that follow us and work with us and succeed us are going to have to deal with in a very realistic format.
Yes, and I think that people's need for information has really, the expectation of information arrival has really multiplied many fold. So the information that exists, there's a sense that it needs to be transferred with a certain amount of immediacy. And that the old days of waiting for the town crier to come by and cry out the message of the day, or the Pony Express guys ride those horses for ages with a letter.
Oh, well, those are really the old days.
Those are old days.
You're apparently a lot older than me.
Those are Kansans. Yeah, I am old. I am older than you are. You'll never be as old as me.
Not by much.
Not by much, but so those things are, and then you move up into, you go into the 50s and 60s and expectations of behavior. I put my 8-tracks in a pile somewhere.
8-tracks?
Yeah,
Holy smokes.
I got my 8-tracks over there. And
we're not going to start comparing those.
My vinyls are out there too.
Oh, me too.
I don't think, and I thought I was really with it because now I had an iMac computer at home. No, I'm not, because my children now have moved to pads. They call them pads, iPads, other kinds of pads. But basically all the computer gigabytes and all that, whatever those words are all there. And they're on the run, and they expect to be able to communicate with their cities, and they don't expect to come down to City Hall. They're not expecting to come down to City Hall and to do their business. The time they feel in terms of their utilization time is that expectation of having to travel to City Hall. But they do expect open air. They expect to be able to walk, bike, to basically have an openness, and they expect to have this in-betweener life between work and going home and go to sleep. They expect there has to be things that happen in between the workplace
and good for
and
them.
out there.
And good for them.
That's so different than where I came from.
Quality of life really matters, and one of the things that we've found in Keene, the mayor and I have gone around meeting with many of our employer base, and one of the things that we've found with them is that, for example, Keene has had a niche relative to manufacturing and other things for a long period of time, but we find that even with our manufacturing base and all the rest of it, that technology has overtaken it. So where they might have had 2/3 of the workforce manufacturing oriented, now and only 1/3 technology or technically oriented, now it's the opposite. It's 2/3 technical and 1/3 manufacturing, and even that is changing rapidly. So the quality and the kind of person that they're looking for, who brings a skill set, has changed. And that person wants exactly what you're talking about. They want that quality of life with their family. They want that trail. They want to be able to bike and recreate and go to things and have things available to them. And Keene's realizing that to be a sustainable community today, it's not just about roads and sidewalks, it's about other amenities. And then when you're living on, you know, in a community, a small community with a very defined and upside amount of money that you can get from property taxes, how do you actually create those amenities and not make it a burden on the property taxpayer? And that's really where some of the creative thinking is now going.
And you know, when you and I were talking, we've been talking during the course of the day, we've talked a lot on the phone, as John said, a couple times, but you know, we haven't had time to ever spend time together. And now that we've spent almost the entire day together, and this is the end of the day for us.
I think this is the first time I've actually really met you other than talking to you on the phone.
We just kind of connected up, and we kind of brought ourselves together by our own self-direction.
You would not let me off the hook.
No, I kept reeling John in. Come on up, we'll explore this, because we're trying to find, I mean, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We don't want to duplicate, or, you know, in terms of effort, we want to understand universally what our efforts. And so by this sharing of vision and details of what we're respectively doing, and we're going to be doing it at different levels. Our staff, who really are the ones that kind of carry out the work, while John and I kind of in our particular role, every role is important. And those guys are going to be talking to one another in our different staff level, different positions we have, whether they're police or whether they're public works or whether they're technology guys. They're going to be talking, and I think that'll be the value of this situation for us. So I'm kind of, you know, I'm really interested. And when you bring up the revenue subject, you know, the revenue thing is really a challenging thing, and trying to find the creativity. I kind of visualize you know, and I have said on our show, you know, about trying to divide up, you know, in a pie diagram, where money comes from and where money going. And, you know, I get into, there's a certain amount of public money available. And in New Hampshire, it's a fairly limited amount because of the property tax system. I mean, you just can't, you can't overburden that system, because it will break down and go dysfunctional. And then, so where else is the money? Well, the money is the private sector and the nonprofit sector. And the private sector is, you know, in our community, is robust. And I understand it's, you know, is very strong in Keene. And so there's like a lot of wealth there, but we need to partner and collaborate and find out environments that we can establish so the private engine of economic vitality that's going on in both our cities can put itself to work as part of the community and benefit themselves as well as the community as a whole. Figure out how we might do that, whether that might be different types of programs to be supportive of their development, whether there's a room for contributing, room for foundational activity, private foundational. On the nonprofit is amazing. You know, there's a lot of assets and resources in the nonprofit sector. We have the Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center here, and that is, you know, such a world-class, incredible footprint and gigantic operation, and just has some very, very important values and missions and visions and outcomes it's seeking. And it really, we have to see that they're a very integral and important part of our community, and we have to figure out how we can work together to meet all these needs. And one sector can't handle it because private only won't work. So we're trying to figure out the puzzle. And I guess is Keene figured it out? And if you do, please, would you please write the formula?
Write the book on it. No, I don't know that anybody.
I will steal it.
I don't know that anybody has the specific answer. Some of our forecasting technique has changed relative to revenue sources. The way we look at 3-year horizons differently now relative to the budget. Have been doing that since 2009. And of course, we've had to streamline our operations. We've reduced the number of full-time employees and things like that. Most organizations have had to do that, whether they're private or public. So we've economized where we can. We've used creative solutions for problems, whether it's at a wastewater plant or just the way in which we do business relative to highway department. We now, for example, if we have a snowstorm, we don't have as many people in our highway department as we used to, so we'll take resources and assets from other departments during a storm and have them be managed during that storm by one single department, where in the past we wouldn't have done it that way. So we've done, and we're contracting, we go on the spot market for energy, and there's a whole host of things that can save money, just in ways in we look at our energy consumption, things of that nature. All of those things add up and help to economize, because like your community, we lost significant revenue sources. State shared revenues, of course, went to zero, and and highway funds and things like that were seriously reduced. We lost interest income in this economy, which had been a significant factor, and the amount of vehicle registrations had gone down, particularly from the standpoint that people were buying fewer new vehicles. And in the state of New Hampshire, that's significant and has a big impact on local government revenue. So we had to make those adjustments. At the same time, while we were making those adjustments, we found that we would take a hard look at every job. For example, each and every time a job came through as a result of attrition, somebody retired or whatever that happened, we took a hard look at that job to see if indeed we really needed it in that sense, or whether or not it could be something else could be created, some other type of job could be created from it. So all those things go into the mix. Then as we looked at capital projects for our community, whether it's buildings or what have you, we looked for partnerships. We looked for ways to, either whether it was a grassroots funding campaign or tax credits or anything, or tax increment financing, whatever it might be, we started to utilize all the sources of revenue. I'm sure that you've done the same. Even when the ARA funds, the Resource Recovery Act came through, the city was very, very successful.
You were ready to go.
We were ready to go. We had those shovel-ready projects, and that has consistently helped us with significant amounts of money. So communities like Keene and Lebanon have done extremely well. You might recall, this predates you, but back in 2009, just before the bubble burst, Lebanon and Keene were rated by Bloomberg, I believe, I'm forgetting now exactly which magazine it was, as 2 of the top 10 communities in their population size, along with Key West. I think Lev was either number 1 or Key West was number 1, and then the city of Keene was number 3 behind them, as communities that were rated highly relative to their ability to resist any type of recession. And so, obviously that's a diverse economy, a lot of self-reliance, a lot of opportunity for collaboration within the community. So both communities have probably done pretty well.
Yeah, I think we have it. But both of us find ourselves that our life cycling on infrastructure. We've had to.
That's hard.
That's hard because I think the engineers folks will say to us that there's 3. It's usually end up being 30 or 50 year recycling on a lot of the main infrastructure.
Yes.
And a lot of those 30, 50 year programs and infrastructure cycling have kind of run their course. And I think that CSO project we're engaged in, plus we have...
What's a CSO project?
The separation of water and sewer.
Oh, okay.
We've got, EPA...
I said that for our viewers.
EPA came in and said we got to separate our water and sewer so that the water flow off the streets is not being intermixed with the sewer water, which is being flown into places like the river. So that's all being squared away, but it's costing a lot of money. And then some of our other places, especially the wastewater side of the house, those systems have come to run their course. And we really have to some of our prime connections, you know, our corridors, the downtown Lebanon and the West Lebanon corridor on Mechanics and Miracle Mile and Muskoma Greenway, and then of course the busy 120 corridor.
Well, I have to tell you, I have to tell you what a beautiful community this is. And you know, I don't get up here enough, and when I do come up, I'm always really impressed by just how nice it is, how well laid out it is. It seems to work well. I don't see a lot of traffic congestion, but maybe I'm not here at the right time.
Well, you're not at 120 at a certain time.
All right.
When you'll get nailed.
But you're absolutely right. Infrastructure is a huge issue for all communities in New Hampshire. I think it's one that the state of New Hampshire is really needs to take a much more of a leadership role, whether it's bridges or highways. If you expect to have a New Hampshire advantage, we're going to have to invest in our infrastructure.
Absolutely, and I think that's a universal rule across the United States. Because John and I, our jobs would be much better if other levels of government would provide some more investment opportunity in infrastructure.
Let's stop passing along their costs.
But yeah, and it does not pass along those costs that we end up having at the end of the chain. In the last couple of minutes we have, I think we need to reflect on our wishes for the best of holidays and the best of New Year's that are ahead of us in our respective communities. And when you're thinking at this year, I always have these mixed feelings at this end of the year. I've had people, the passages of life that occurred during last year, have been some important passages. Some wonderful people have passed away this year, and then we've had some really challenges to the community. In the imposition of the climate change on the microbursts and we expect more of that. So we know that there's that's always hard on you, but then there's been room for celebration. And I celebrate Lebanon, and I just think this is it's shown to me there's people working together. You see it all the time here. You see the vibrancy. You and I had lunch at Three Tomatoes today. That was marvelous. I bought eggnog for John and I. I was challenging him to a chugging contest.
Oh, my goodness.
But I let him off on that. That was too gross.
Chugging eggnog, I don't know.
I don't think people chug eggnog. I think they used to chug other beverages.
Does your primary care provider watch this show? Because
No.
They're going to be all over you for chugging eggnog.
Yeah, we're not going to chug eggnog today, John. So we need reflections from your perspective with regard to Keene, your community, and just
I love this. I love this side of the state of New Hampshire, whether it's Keene or this area. There is a lot of collaboration. There is a lot of self-sufficiency. People pull together. They seem to understand how to do that. Keene is known for it across the state. People work well, regardless of which agency or what have you, and that makes a huge difference when you're talking about a community being successful. And I'd like to think that both of our communities understand that. They realize it's in their own best interest, and I'm very thankful for the community that I live in and that employs me, and I know you feel the same way. I
do. And with that, I think I'd like to toast to Keene and Lebanon and a great group of residents.
Here.
And the great group of stakeholders.
And to all our good friends that are watching us right now.
Amen. And hopefully you'll see the disc on either city site, and God bless the employees of our cities.
Thank you very much, and God bless them.